So
Okay. At Sioux Center Christian or Sioux Center?
I'm going to be starting at Sioux Center Christian in the fall. My husband teaches at Dort.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, in the math department. So
The math department. Nice.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
We got 4 of us so far.
Yep.
So these are optional, but I'm glad you're here so we can connect a little bit and say hi. Let's see, we've got Ruth. And is that Brad?
Yep.
And Travis. Well, it looks like it's 11:01, so why don't we get going? And if other people join us, then that's fine too, right? I've got a spreadsheet that I made from your proposals. So I'm going to put that on my other screen here. And we've got Ruth. Well, why don't you tell us what you're doing? It looks like the last I heard you were doing language arts in middle school.
Yes.
And that's going to be a map?
Yes, curriculum map. I plan on having the state standards aligned with like essential questions and some teaching for transformation column. And then the school has a little bit of a layout, it seems, that they have certain like speech contests and some different things that we need to be working towards. So I guess organizing it with what they already have laid out as well. Okay. So.
And when I first taught this course at another college, and I think when they designed it here, and it turns out to be the same course, it was just for teachers, and the big project was just a unit. So,
okay.
So I've added in a lot of choices, and of course we've got the school leadership folks who don't all need a unit that they can teach, with 10 lesson plans. But a lot of people ask, well, how long should this be in terms of pages and stuff like that? And it's really hard to say that. I thought I had a piece of paper from yesterday's meeting, but it is 200 points of the 600 for the course. Now, that doesn't mean it's a third of the work, because when I looked at the estimated hours for the course, 135, it was something like 70 just for the reading, right? So, I mean, so you don't have to say it's a third of the work of the course. In terms of hours, I think I estimated 30 hours for all the projects. But a lot of people link them together, like the presentation. I don't know, Ruth, are you going to do a presentation of your map too?
Well, yeah, that was one of my questions for you. What I planned on having a map for me that's more involved, and then taking a portion of those items and presenting it. And I wanted some feedback on like what would be a good method of presentation, like a Prezi or something like that, that I can have on my website that students and parents can see at any time and know what we're working on.
Yeah.
Broadly speaking. Yeah. So I was planning on doing that, and then along with a paper was sort of my brains. Yeah, that was what I was. Yeah. So I don't know if there's any suggestions.
Yeah, that would be very typical for people who do a map. And that would fit into these guidelines that the whole thing is about the equivalent of making 10 lesson plans, for a unit.
Yeah.
So, it's really not possible with all these different things that people are doing to say everybody's got to have 10 pages or 20 pages or, this many slides or whatever, especially with a map. A lot of the work might be concentrated just in one chart that you're making. But then, if you describe it in a paper and then later for your presentation, a Prezi is fine. A lot of people do Prezis or PowerPoints, of course. And I think Google Docs has a presentation option too now. So whatever works for you and the the website or whatever that your parents are accessing, or whoever you want to be able to see this. And it sounds like you want both parents and students to be able to see it. So yeah, that sounds great.
Like, as far as submitting, Dr. Holtrup, does it work to just like upload 3 or 4 different pieces, like in separate? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, multiple submissions to the assignment page works fine. And then you should probably put in a comment that says you did that, because when I go through in the grading portion, I'll click over from, the person before you alphabetically. Your name will come up, the rubric will come up, and then the last thing that you submitted will come up, all on my screen. But then if you've got a note in the comments that says, please see the other submissions also.
Okay, I can do that.
I'll probably remember that, because a lot of people are going to do it this way, I think. But yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, so that's me.
All right, Brad, what are you doing?
Mine's going to be over the Constitution.
Oh, that's right.
It's going to be, typically I have the students make their own presentations, so I'll have part of it will be, I'll be teaching them how to read the Constitution, because we're going to go line by line and read the whole thing. And then we're going to talk about the history behind it. I don't necessarily create slides for this. This is just kind of off my notes. So I'll just put my notes into like a text, like a Word document. And then we'll go through the whole thing. We go all the way through all the amendments. The big part for me is I like to have the kids read it and put it into their own verbiage, because it's written in a way from the 1780s, and the kids really struggle with the verbiage and the changes of the way it was and the way it is today. So, and then also I have a link to a dictionary where kids can look up like terms that they don't commonly use today that's written into the Constitution, and then they can define those terms and they can see what that means. And I'd like for them to put that into their own definition. So I'll have a lot of links and things like that I'll add to the lesson plans, and then all my exams. And then I do this year with this project, I'm planning on doing more critical thinking activities. So kind of check their knowledge and understanding of the subject matter, but then also how do they view the document, and how do they, one of the things is I always tell the kids, everybody can look at the Constitution and there's always going to be 2 different beliefs about what that means. So part of the exercise too is that I want to see their understanding, but also I want them to see that one person looks at the words and the verbiage this way, but another one thinks of it this way. And that's part of why we have the problems we do in our government. So kind of a big complex web.
Yeah, that's why we hire Supreme Court justices, and then we argue about whether they're originalists or not.
Yeah, constitutionalists, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that sounds really cool, and that's 11th and 12th grade, right?
11th and 12th grade, yep.
Yeah, that sounds like something we need in our society. Is that aligned to state standards, did you say?
Yes, and federal standards as well.
Okay, and you're in Garden Grove, Iowa.
Yep.
Awesome. And so this is a traditional unit with 10 lesson plans, or about that many.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'd probably cut it. I'm gonna have to cut it back a little bit from what I normally do to kind of for time, because
yeah,
I'm completely rewriting the whole unit. And this unit's been something I've worked on for 7-8 years, and I just kind of want to redo it to add more of what I'm learning here in the class with some of these critical thinking questions. I think I kind of miss on that, or it comes up in conversation, so then I make an assignment. It's kind of one of those things that I haven't written down everything, because each each year the subject matter means something different to the kids, and the politics is different every year. So that's kind of why I don't write it down as much as I probably should have.
Right. And since this is the oldest original option in the whole course, I've got the most written about it. So on the page for units, there's a long description, a long rubric. So I think I even have learning styles still in the rubric. I should probably take that out because a lot of people say that they're not what we thought they were after all. But yeah, if you go to that, I do appreciate having a little blurb written ahead of time, just kind of pointing out, just kind of like a tour guide saying, you know, be sure to see this in lesson 3, and you know, I'm trying to do more with critical thinking in each lesson, you know, that kind of thing, just to kind of highlight, you know, the things you're saying now, because well, I used to get paper copies of this in big notebooks, you know, and I'd carry home these boxes of notebooks, and they're beautiful and they're creative, and I'm like, okay, so what was this person trying to do again, you know, that kind of thing. So just if you can kind of guide me through looking at it a little bit with something written would be the main thing. And then your presentation, is that going to be on this?
Yeah, I kind of talked about possibly doing my presentation over to my the changing of the schedule from an 8-hour day to a 9-hour day. I'm kind of stuck on which to do. I think I'd probably be better off if I did the 8-hour day changes to the 9-hour day, just for the fact that that'd be more of a school board level. So it'd be more of a presentation type thing that I would have to do to the school board, or would do to the school board. So
okay, yeah, and that's obviously curriculum related too. So yeah, that's up to you. A lot of people get to this point in the course and they're like, you know what, I could just present this 200-point project to some group, you know, that comes to mind, and that would be fine too if you want to make that switch. You know, that would be kind of probably more for students and parents, but yeah, it's up to you. Either way, in my mind, is a legitimate presentation. But like Ruth, for example, for students and parents, right, Ruth? The presentation. Okay, well, let's hear from Travis then. What are you doing, Travis?
All right, I jumped in on this one. I'm not math or LA.
That's fine.
But I'm focusing on grade 4 science. And I was kind of linking it to my 100-point project. Ruth and Brad, my 100-point project had to do with technology and implementing more 21st century technology into my classroom. And so I wanted to take one of my units one of my projects that I was focusing on that project, and just completely revamp a unit. So the unit that I chose is one called Waste in Our World. It's just basically goes through the variety of waste, from human waste to decomposition to taking a field trip to the Edmonton Waste Management Center, and just, yeah, a massive variety. But in years past, it's taken about 7 weeks to go through that unit. The technology part that I wanted to add to this unit was creating a class textbook. We in Alberta, we don't have a textbook for elementary science. It's kind of just a government docs that you get, and you have these goals and outcomes that you have to achieve, and then you're kind of given the freedom to go the direction you want, which is nice on one hand, but on the other hand, it would be nice to have a textbook to draw from every once in a while. So I think having the students create their own textbook, and I'm still researching different ways that this would be presented, but it would go on. I'm hoping to create a class website when our classes are done, and then this could go on that for students to read and study from at home. Then I wanted to create the assessment at the end from stuff that's in the textbook that they created. That's the direction I'm heading. I'm still every time I sit down to work on this project a little bit, there's more questions of, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And it's got quite a learning curve. For me, the hard part is, how do I create this presentation when it's something that the students are going to create, not something that I'm creating beforehand to give to the students. So that's where I'm stuck. But
any ideas, anybody, for Travis and the presentation?
So are you envisioning that, excuse me, that the assessment is the textbook?
In a way, I still would like an assessment at the end, just a test over the unit at the end. But a huge part of their grade for this unit would be that textbook, yes.
Okay, and the textbook would be primarily or solely about the waste in Alberta?
Yeah.
Okay. Because based on like the UBD reading and stuff, I almost feel like your assessment could be only the textbook.
Only the textbook?
I just like, that is what they're learning. That's their knowledge. Or, yeah, but what you mentioned too, like, or an assessment based on the textbook that's posted, like that they are presenting what they learned to someone that isn't in their class, or, you know, so, and just recording it would be another way that you could have the technology piece, you know, an MP3 recording or something that they're explaining to their grandparents, or they're explaining to a neighbor or something like that.
Right.
But I think it's the critical thinking that you're having going into it, that's what you're writing down. Like, these are the questions I'm thinking through. These are the questions I plan to ask.
Okay.
Is what your project part is. Is my thought.
Okay. Thanks.
I like the idea of using projects to do the technology piece. So like the presentation idea that she had, you could create a rubric that you could use as your assessment, and you would assess their project based off of that rubric. And then her idea with using it as a way to communicate to parents, grandparents, family members about waste in your province, I think that is a really cool idea. I really like that idea. I think that'd be something that, to the kids, it'd be really meaningful to the kids, because then they could, you know, go home and show the kids, or show the parents, hey, this is what we are doing. And, you know, they can even show waste in their own house, you know, or even if the family had a farm or something like that. I think it's a great tool.
Okay.
Yeah, it is really exciting, Travis, because they could even like weigh the amount of waste that they produce in a week and compare that to other classmates. But something that I also thought of is my brother lived in Germany for a few years, and they have an amazing recycling system. I don't know how Canada's is. The U.S. is terrible. But so when you talked about global learners, it might be interesting to connect with a classroom in another country that does a great job of waste management. And, you know, fourth graders in Germany could explain what they do, or what their lunchroom looks like, or, you know, something like that. That would be an authentic way to connect with another classroom.
Excellent. I like that idea a lot. Yeah. Edmonton is known for having a good waste management program, but then just even last year, all of a sudden it's like all over the news that actually they're cutting corners all over the place, and and they're not as amazing as us Albertans think.
So if you need to put together some elements of a presentation, that could be examples or national data that your students could then fill in, like the counterpart for the local data, and also, like Ruth was talking about, your expectations.
Okay.
Or the rubric. I think Brad was talking about the rubric. So there could be a lot for you to kind of build a skeleton presentation, then your students would kind of fill it out. I mean, that limits their creativity a little bit, but it also gives them a pretty good structure for what you're looking for. Especially
with averages, like if this is the average waste produced by a household, like how does yours or something compare to that?
Right. I've done other things similar, like I've taken classroom rows and put a garbage bag in the front of each row, and for a week they could only put their classroom garbage into that specific row, and then we compared which row had the most waste and that sort of stuff. So that's fun, but I like taking it home, making it personal, applying it to the family a little bit.
Will you get pushback from any families?
Oh, I'm sure I'll get some from some for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's not all bad.
No.
Educating the whole family. Well,
with my project, it's fine to like just find, I mean, I don't have to create my own essential questions, correct?
Right.
Like there's a lot of resources. It's more sifting through the knowledge and then citing my sources.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, we have this huge anti-plagiarism push in education, especially higher ed, and curriculum is a whole lot of plagiarism, you know? Like, some people say that there's hardly any new ideas out there. We're just all borrowing from each other, you know, or repackaging, you know, and that's fine. So it gets really hard to kind of figure out, because I want everybody to do some thinking and get creative with this, and, you know, go to the UBD concepts and try to apply them. But there's all kinds of great essential questions out there that you can just Google, and I don't personally have a problem with finding those, and your creative work and your analytical work is, you know, applying them to your specific unit or your map, and, you know, aligning them with state standards and TFT. That's pretty local, and that's pretty analytical. You know, so, you know, you're working with stuff. You're not like, you know, brainstorming the original combinations of words as much as arranging the phrases and does that make sense? Yeah.
Well, and the sifting takes a lot of time. Like there's so much to sift through.
Exactly.
So. And I even feel like I have a list of 20 essential questions and I need to pick one or two, you know, like which are the best, right? Like,
you know, I'm on the search committee at church, and we have probably a list of 50 questions that we can ask a potential pastor. Well, you know, so we don't really need to spend a lot of time making up new questions, but we got to figure out which ones are appropriate and, you know, for the different parts of the process, and which ones we can throw out. And to me, that kind of thinking is more critical thinking and more necessary for this type of project than, you know, getting all the original words. So I hope that helps think about that there.
Hey, Brad, just my own little plug. Do you do anything with having the students listen to Hamilton or any of the Hamilton songs with your Constitution connection? No. I got to see it in Chicago, and it was amazing.
I would love to. They're actually just left Iowa. Hamilton did.
Yeah, Des Moines.
Yeah, yep. I actually live about 60 miles south of Des Moines, but I couldn't get tickets. experience. But I think that's a great idea. I do bring in media. I even bring in, crazy enough, the cartoons like I'm Just a Bill.
Oh,
The kids, it gets in their head, even seniors in high school, and they'll be singing the song up and down the hallways. It's crazy, but that's something I have yet to be able to experience Hamilton, because I know it's an experience. That's something that once I get that opportunity, I'm sure I would probably bring that in. And that's
well, the soundtrack can go a long ways in your classroom, and you can get classroom appropriate versions. Is what I hear. So
okay.
it might be worth playing a couple of them to get.
That would be a lot of the pre-Constitution unit, actually.
Yeah.
And I started from the very beginning of our country and the formation of government, from the local areas to then becoming more of a state or regional. So yes, it does have its place definitely in my government class, and that's something that right now I have yet to experience, and I want to be able to experience it, because I think everybody that walks away from that, they're just amazed. So
my favorite is like the cabinet meetings are a wrap off. Like it's pretty fantastic.
I've tried that with my students. They're not rappers, but we've played around with some rap and things like that with different aspects, different classes. Some classes are, much more into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be fun. We've created our own. I remember we made a Constitution song one year. I don't know. Yeah, it's fun stuff.
Good.
That sounds great. So would the three of you, even though Ruth, you're doing a map and not a unit, would you like to be a review team, peer review team for next week when people start turning things in, or do you want to be paired with some other maps, Ruth?
It doesn't really matter to me. It's kind of nice to have a face with a person.
Yeah, I've noticed that really helps a lot. So yeah, maybe we can do that. So this was the second one of these. I'm going to offer another one on Monday, I think. And they're optional, but I've appreciated, just getting to hear more from your own voice, what you're thinking and doing, and then, have the opportunity for you to kind of bounce ideas off each other too. So anything else, any questions or anything?
I just want to let you guys know this is Big Fair Week down here in Lucas County. So my daughter, she's showing, and I'm going to be working food stands and all that other stuff. So as I get into Wednesday next week, that's probably when I will be submitting it. So I just want to give you guys heads up.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that first submission is due until the 26th, which
Thursday.
is Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's probably when mine will be getting in.
Okay, good.
Mine as well.
Fine. And then you each would have a few more days to kind of look at what the other two have done and fill out the response. And then then there's some time to kind of revise things and get it done. And as you know, this is the highest point value thing for the whole course. There's no exam. I was going to say there's no final paper, but there is a little write-up, just what you've learned, but I don't see that as a final paper or a final exam. So this is where I'd like you to put your energies, to get this good and polished, so that you're real proud of it. You can use it in the fall and that kind of stuff.
Is there one more project, Dr. Holchip?
There's the presentation.
Okay, but that's off of this?
Usually.
I think I was unclear on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be. Sometimes people are doing totally different things. But a lot of people make it work, and that to me is totally legitimate. On the other hand, if Travis, you were talking about the 9-period day, right?
No, that's Brad.
Brad. I'm looking at Brad and saying Travis. I'm sorry.
Well, my brother's Travis, so that works out.
Okay. All right. Like I knew that. Yeah. So, I mean, whatever your curriculum needs are, but if you're excited about this and you've got an audience for this, by all means, just make that, part of part of it. So that's the last project. There's a one-page chart I'd like you to fill out about how you see yourself stacking up with the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, because we are aligned to those. And this is the only course where we ask about that, but I've always done that from my other college too. And that's where 20 points is an easy 20 points, because it's just, one page. And it lists the standard wording, and I'd like you to just write a sentence or two about how you see yourself lining up to that. It's not, how you assess yourself can be really high, really low according to those standards. That doesn't factor into the course grade. It's just whether you did it. So if you did it, you get 20 points. But it gives me some information, or it gives us some information. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So after this, you've got the presentation, you've got that self-assessment chart, and you've got a summary paper. And don't go whole hog on the summary paper. It's 50 points. So it's like the presentation. There's some guidelines and choices and stuff. It fills a screen, on Canvas. But yeah, and we've got some time. When this course ends on August 6th, but I think I turn in grades at the end of that week, whatever August 6th is.
Monday.
It's a Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, if something's trickling in on Tuesday or something, then I shouldn't promise that the course is going to be open forever. Let me just check in settings here a minute. Starts June 1, doesn't say when it ends. That's really interesting. So yeah, if you can get it on Canvas instead of like emailing me and saying Canvas was closed, can you still take this? That would work best. But I think that if somebody needs a little bit, a day or two of extension on anything, but I'm not trying to, push you into dragging this out either. So I'm just pretty flexible. It's part of my philosophy of education. I know other people go the opposite direction. So, if you've got two courses going and you've got somebody who's not flexible, I'll be the flexible one. If that helps.
It might.
All right. Anything else?
All right. Is this recording going to be posted?
It does say it's recording, so yes.
Okay.
Yeah, when I set it up yesterday, I told it to automatically record, and the little red light's on, so I guess it will be.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
See ya. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.